Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, the PGA Tour has two events going on this week, which means we need to do two breakdowns. Last night on the show, we broke down the Scottish Open and told you everything you need to know about that golf tournament. And today, we are going to be breaking down the alternate event, the ISCO Championship. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about this alternate event on the PGA Tour, including the new golf course that it's at this year. We're going to tell you everything you need to know. We're going to take a look at the data. We are going to make some picks for DFS and betting, and we're going to do it all in 30 minutes or less. In fact, I think this one's probably going to go under 30 minutes, considering that we've got a brand new golf course, and that's going to throw some all entirely new variables into handicapping this event. But like I said, we talked about the Scottish Open yesterday, so if you've not checked that out already, make sure you go check that out. And if you have not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, which has been our goal from the start of the summer. We are 7 away currently, and the only way we can hit that goal is if people like you hit that subscribe button. So make sure you subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're listening on audio, go hit the subscribe button on YouTube. There's no punishment for doing that. And if you subscribe, you'll be notified when all of our content drops, including all of our rest of content from the PGA Tour season, as well as all of our best ball content for NFL and college football that's going to be coming your way through the end of the summer, and then our college football regular season content as well. Anyway, like I said, we've got a brand new course this week at the ISCO, so let's go ahead and start the breakdown right now. All right, so first things first, the ISCO Championship, which is formerly the Barbasol Championship, which is the alternate event to the Scottish Open on the PGA Tour, is now being played at a new golf course. This tournament had previously been played for the last, I believe, 7 years at Keene Trace Country Club or Keene Trace Golf Club. I don't even know what the post or the suffix is there, but Keene Trace, which is in Lexington, Kentucky, that is no longer the host course. The new host course for this year is Hurstbourne Country Club, which is just outside of Louisville. So with it being a brand new course, and it's a course that largely has not hosted any professional golf, at least to the level of what we're going to see this week, we don't really have a whole lot of data to go off of. We don't really have a whole lot of anecdotal evidence to go off of. What we do have is we have some flyovers that are available on YouTube, and we have the fact sheet from the GCSAA, right? And we also have kind of just a general vibe for how golf courses like this are set up, how this event is going to be set up, and how everything's going to be played at. Because first things first, this is an alternate event, right? So you are not getting the cream of the crop best players on the PGA Tour here at this golf course. You are getting the leftovers, so to speak. Anybody who did not qualify as part of the Scottish Open. And also, this since the Scottish Open is co-sanctioned with the DP World Tour, this event is also co-sanctioned with the DP World Tour. And so you're going to get some DP World Tour players that, you guessed it, also did not qualify for the Scottish Open. So not exactly going to be a strong field here this week at Hurstbourne Country Club. But anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching the flyovers that they have of the golf course. This is a par 70. This is one of the shortest golf courses that they're going to see on the PGA Tour all season long. The fact sheet has it at 7,056 yards, so we can round up to 7,100. But the bottom line is that is a short golf course. And even though it is a short golf course, even though it is a par 70, I do believe we're going to end up seeing it play pretty easy here this week. Water is very rarely in play here at this golf course. There's not a whole lot of hazards outside of the rough, which could be grown pretty thick, but the fairways look fairly wide enough that the players are going to be able to hit them. There appears to be very minimal hazards otherwise. The other kind of standout feature of this golf course is the greens themselves. They are quite small. They are one of the smallest on the PGA Tour. They're at 4,750 square feet. That's the third smallest that's going to be played on the PGA Tour this season. But the Barbasol Championship traditionally has been a birdie fest event, right? Like all these alternate events tend to be played very easy because the bottom line is the people who are setting up the golf course know that they're not getting the PGA Tour's best, and they don't want to embarrass these guys. They don't want to make it a tournament that they don't want to come to. They want everybody that could possibly come to this tournament to come to it. They want to get the best field they possibly can. So I anticipate that, like these alternate events, the setup is going to be quite easy, and it's going to be an event where you're going to have to score. And the bottom line is this: with the greens being as small as they are, you're just going to have to get greens, and you're going to have to roll in birdie putts this week, because I do expect this to kind of fall into the broad category of a bent grass birdie fest, which we have seen the previous weeks on the PGA Tour. We've got bent grass greens yet again. And the bent grass birdie fests, we're in that section of the PGA Tour calendar. I'm talking Detroit Golf Club. I am talking TBC Deer Run. I am talking TBC Craig Ranch. I'm talking TBC Twin Cities, like just all these easy bent grass courses that you see on the PGA Tour schedule. It appears that we have another one here this week. Now, there are two kind of unique features, and one is that they are flipping the nines here at this event. So what we're watching right now, hole 9 on YouTube, will actually be hole 18 for the tournament. They're doing that because hole 18 for members is a par 3, and they don't want to end on a par 3. I get it. And so the hole 9 is going to be actually hole 18. Now, one other thing to talk about, the GCSA has released the fact sheet for this tournament, so all the information that I'm getting is from that because there's really not a whole lot else to go off of. The one thing that really stands out is the surface of the fairways. It is zoysia grass, which is not something that you see very often on the PGA Tour. TBC Southwind in Memphis is zoysia grass. Valhalla, which hosted the PGA Championship last year, is zoysia grass. Accordia Golf Narashino hosted the Zozo Championship also, and TBC Craig Ranch. Those are the only zoysia grass fairways that you see on the PGA Tour. Could it stand to reason that some guys are going to have a better vibe for hitting their irons off of that surface than others? Absolutely. Like, I think that's something that I'm going to be factoring in a little bit this week, performance at those golf courses, just because that's one of kind of the one things that we know about this course is that it is going to be a different surface, and that might be a micro edge that we have. And also the rough is going to be quite thick. It's going to be Kentucky bluegrass. It says 4 to 6 inches on the fact sheet. That is quite thick. But as we've seen at other golf courses similar to this one, thick rough is not simply enough to make a golf tournament play difficult. Like, this is not going to be Oakmont all of a sudden. There's no other hazards. It's not going to be able to play super firm and fast. It's just not going to be like the rough is really the only hazard that you're going to be dealing with here this week. And then, like we said earlier, this is one of the shortest tournaments on the PGA Tour all year, and it is some of the smallest greens that we're going to see all year. The other thing that kind of stands out is that there's a lot of par 4s that are under 400 yards at this golf course, and so you're going to need to be able to score with your wedges here this week. So for our key stats that we've got, look, strokes gained approach is going to be important week in, week out on the PGA Tour. I think it's going to be mightily important this week. It's going to be kind of the one thing that you can really use from, no matter what course you've got coming in, your form in terms of your strokes gain approach is going to determine your general vibes with your irons. And that's something that you're going to have this week, because you're going to have to be able to use your irons to put yourself in a position to score, hitting more greens than your competition, giving yourself better looks at birdie than your competition. I'm also looking at strokes gained off the tee. I'm not looking at general driving distance or driving accuracy. Look, good drivers of the golf ball are good drivers of the golf ball. We saw it last week at TBC Deer Run is a course that you can't just bomb and gouge, but the guys who are good with the driver were good with the driver. They were able to, hit fairways. They were able to put themselves in advantageous positions. So I am going to be looking at that, because if the main hazard this week is going to be that rough, then guys who are good off the tee are going to be mitigating that factor. With this being a birdie fest, I also want to look at the holy trinity of birdie fest numbers. I want to look at putting, because you're going to need to cash in on those putts. I want to look at birdie or better statistics, which doesn't necessarily factor in putting, but it just measures in, hey, are you able to score? It doesn't matter how you score, are you able to score? And then performance on other easy golf courses, including my comp courses, which are TBC Deer Run, Detroit Golf Club, TBC Craig Ranch, TBC Summerlin, which is out in Vegas, but is another wedge and birdie fest, and then Keene Trace, which was the host of this tournament the previous few years. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to go ahead and dive down the rabbit hole. All right, if you have been with us long enough this season, you know that when I refer to the rabbit hole, I'm not referring to like an actual literal rabbit hole in the ground. I'm talking about the rabbit hole, which is a tool from BetSperts Golf that allows you to use all different kinds of filters and conditions in order to really isolate the micro skills and statistics that you want to use to create a custom model for a specific golf tournament. It's really allowed me to find some guys that I might not have otherwise been on this year. I think it is the best golf data site around, and I cannot recommend it enough. My only complaint about the rabbit hole, which is going to hurt us in an event like this, is it does not have DP World Tour or Korn Ferry Tour data. So we're just left with what these guys do on the PGA Tour for these statistics, which does kind of hurt evaluating some of this field. But the guys at the top are the guys that we're interested in anyway, or the guys that are playing on the PGA Tour week in and week out. So I do think that it's still quite useful this week. Anyway, talking about what we just talked about with the model. Looking at strokes gained off the tee for this field, the best players in the field: Rico Hoey, Cam Champ, Luke List, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Stephen Fisk. Then looking at general strokes gained approach, the best golfers in the field in strokes gained approach in the calendar year 2025 are Jackson Suber, Rico Hoey, John Pock, Joseph Bramlett, and Kevin Roy. Now, when you filter it out to courses with just small greens, who are the best players in the field on strokes gained approach? Because I do think that's a skill you're going to need to have this week. You're going to be able to need to hit these tight targets on these small greens. Rico Hoey, Kevin Roy, Grayson Sigg, Chan Kim, and David Lipsky is your top 5. Then strokes gained putting on bent grass greens, which is what we're going to see this week. Best in the field. Vince Whaley, Cade Cummins, S.H. Kim, Bronson Burgoon, and Patrick Fishburne as your top 5. Then I wanted to look at birdie or better on courses that are easier than average, because I do expect this course to play quite easier than average. Best in the field are Max Kiefer, Michael Thorbjornsen, Jackson Suber, Shubhankar Sharma, and S.H. Kim. Then for strokes gained total here, I want to look at just total on easy courses. Who plays easy courses well in this field? And you've got Kevin Roy, Chan Kim, Rico Hoey, Patrick Fishburne, and Bo Hostler. Then I want to look at strokes gained total in weak fields, because this is a weak field. And so, you get some of these guys that, if they're playing in the signature events or they're playing in some of the big time PGA Tour events, that's not necessarily going to give an accurate representation of how they might fare in an event like this. Best in the field in weak fields: Patrick Fishburne, Rico Hoey, Emiliano Grillo, Justin Lauer, and Vince Whaley. And then the last two, we've got strokes gained total on Zoysia fairway courses. So courses that have Zoysia grass in the fairways. Who's played well at those? We've got Ben Coles, Carson Young, Rafael Campos, Aaron Baddeley, and Adam Schenk as your top 5. And then the very last stat is the comp courses. Who are the best players in the field at the comp courses? That whole list that we rattled off earlier. We've got Rico Hoey, Michael Thorbjornsen, Mark Hubbard, Hayden Springer, and Ricardo Gouveia. I do not know much about him. I know he primarily plays on the DP World Tour. Let's look at him real quick. So where are those numbers coming from? Yeah, he played the ISCO and the Barbasol at Keen Trace and played well there. Huh. Interesting. So yeah, that was enough for him to pop up at the top 5 in that list. All right, anyway, you throw all those stats into a custom model, and you end up with a model that spits out as our number 1 golfer this week, Kevin Roy, which is not really a surprise, because Kevin Roy is playing some really good golf, and it's coming at the comp courses, and it is coming on bent grass greens, which is his best putting surface, and it's coming in easy scoring conditions, which is what he's the best at. It's coming at short golf courses, which is what he's the best at. And it's just like this is just a dream of a profile. There was no name attached to this coming into this event. This is exactly the guy that I would pick. He's gaining over a stroke per round on approach in his last 3 events on average. He is a positive putter. He's a good off the tee player. He excels in easy conditions, excels in weak fields. Kevin Roy checks all of the boxes that I'm looking for this week. And I think that he's a guy that you can confidently start your DFS lineups off with, or confidently put in a bet to win this tournament in an outright fashion. Because let's be honest, when you have these alternate events, a lot of the times what happens is one of the guys near the top wins it, because the guys that are near the top of this event are just better players than the guys near the bottom, because the guys near the bottom are the fledgling DP World Tour players, and they are Korn Ferry Tour players. The guys at the top are week in, week out PGA Tour players. And in Kevin Roy's case, he's a week in, week out PGA Tour player who's playing good golf against better competition at similar golf courses. Just check off all the boxes. Kevin Roy is going to be one of my guys here this week. Number 2 is Rico Hoey. And I got to be honest, if you could guarantee me right now that Rico Hoey was going to be a neutral putter of the golf ball this week, I would place an outright bet on him. Because here's the problem. He's one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour. The Rocket Classic, he lost over 6 strokes total putting through 2 rounds and a missed cut. Every other facet of his game is fine. Dude just can't putt. At the John Deere Classic last week, lost over 4 strokes putting for the event, finished T11. If he was a neutral putter, I believe he would have been 1 stroke out of the playoff. I just don't just everything points to this being a great spot for Rico Hoey. He was in the playoff here last year at Keen Trace at this event, but can he make enough putts? That's the question. And if you're a team no putt person, if you're somebody that says, hey, putting is a volatile stat, I'll take the variance on putting any day of the week, then Rico Hoey might be the guy for you, because everything else points to him being a great play. But I just don't know if I can trust it. I would rather put all of my eggs in the basket of Kevin Roy, who is $200 more on DraftKings and very similar outright betting odds. Now, after those two, you get guys that are kind of in the mid tier. Carson Young is third. And Carson Young, for whatever reason, has an incredible track record in alternate events. T13 at the Myrtle Beach Classic this year, T10 at the Puerto Rico Open. Last year, he missed the cut at both the Barracuda and the ISCO. We'll ignore that for a second, but he played well at Myrtle Beach. He played well at Puerto Rico 2 years ago. Like, he played well at Corrales 2 years ago. Like, these alternate week field events are kind of his jam, and he's coming in with really good approach form. He really heated up on Sunday at the John Deere Classic, and I believe he had one of the rounds of the day on Sunday. So he's coming in with really good vibes, really good form. Carson Young is a guy that I'm probably going to be playing a ton in DFS, and I think he's a very logical mid-range outright bet. Ben Coles comes in fourth. So Ben Coles, when you look at the stats from the custom model, he's a really good, really high-rated approach player who's also a highly rated putter. Roy and Young also kind of had that in common. Ben Coles also played the Zoysia Grass fairway courses very well. Is there something to that? I don't know. He's also coming in decent form where he's gained strokes on approach in 3 straight events significantly. It's been the putter that's let him down, but if you look at his historical stats, he's not historically like a terrible putter. He's putting way below his long-term baseline. So I think that this could be another case where you could buy putting regression on Ben Coles because long-term he's not a bad putter. Michael Thorbjornsen is fifth in my model, and he's the favorite to win this event. And look, it's for a good reason why. Like, if you were just to ask me, hey, who's the most talented golfer in this field, I would answer Michael Thorbjornsen because he has the pedigree from what he did in college. He has the pedigree from his early starts as a pro. The question is he ready to win yet? And this would be a great spot for him to go out and get his first win. He also, like Carson Young, is coming in off of a red-hot Sunday at the John Deere Classic, and he still lost strokes putting for that event. Now, quick side note, I think Thorbjornsen's he's got a little more Akawa in him in that he doesn't do well when it gets windy, doesn't do well when conditions get wet or anything like that. That's not going to be the case here this week. Like, his worst round at the John Deere was the windy round, and I think that if conditions stay fair, I think he absolutely has the firepower to come out and win this event. 2 other guys I like at 6 and 7, Mark Hubbard and Emiliano Grillo. Justin Lauer is at 8. And I'm going to be honest, I was planning on playing Justin Lauer before I even saw him near the top in my model. Justin Lauer, long-term, is a really, really good putter. Short-term, he has not been putting well, but his tee to green game has been pretty good, especially his approach play. That's good news for Justin Lauer because then when the whole game cooperates, you get with like what he did at the American Express, where it's a much better field than this one, and he finished T3. Also a shorter golf course, also a golf course with smaller greens, also a birdie fest. Butterfield Bermuda Championship last year. We don't have the strokes gain breakdown from that, but that's Zoysia Grass fairways, and that's a golf course that is very short, very small greens. So I think this is kind of his jam, and I think he excels in weak field events. He's probably going to be a core play for me in DFS this week is Justin Lauer. 9th is Cameron Champ. Kind of in the same regard as Thorbjornsen. He's playing very good golf. He's got a very unique skill set of driver and putter. He's coming in red hot form. Totally understand playing him. Totally understand an outright bet to win. If I were betting a long shot outright, it would be Justin Lauer, by the way. 10th is Patrick Fishburne, who's another guy who kind of just, his jam is these weak field events. Like, he really killed it in the fall last year, which is how he got his PGA Tour card, and then hasn't been good since because he's been playing in like better events, right? At the John Deere Classic, he had a short game really going well, which is not typically his MO. Normally, he's a guy who really mashes it off the tee and is pretty good on approach, but the John Deere Classic, he didn't have those 2 factors going. His short game carried him to a T18. I'd say that's generally a pretty good sign. So I think that he's probably worth a look as well. I think he's getting a little less attention than other guys in his price range in DFS. So I think he's probably like a DFS pivot play if you're into that. However, his recent approach play is not necessarily something super encouraging. 11th and 12th, you've got regular PGA Tour players who have won some of these weak field events. Seamus Power and Lanto Griffin. Don't have a problem going to either of them. 13th, Chris Ventura. 14th, Vincent Whaley, who's kind of turning into a one-trick pony at this point. He is the best putter in the field. Isn't really doing a whole lot else well. The reason I'm continuing going down the model this far, though, is you end up with a quintet, I think is the right word. 5 guys that I want to talk about that all kind of fit a similar regard. They're doing it in slightly different ways, but they're all of a mold. Hayden Springer's 15th. Hayden Springer is a guy who plays very well at easy golf courses. He plays very well at short golf courses and long golf courses for that matter. He doesn't like courses that are in the middle. He is generally a pretty good iron player, but right now his irons are failing him. And he's generally a pretty good putter, which has continued. If he could just flip the irons and keep everything going the same way, this could be a great spot for him. He has shown a tendency to be able to flip those irons, and he has played well in weak field events. I like Hayden Springer a lot this week, but the four below him all are of a vibe. Chan Kim, Joseph Bramlett, Adam Svensson, Grayson Sigg, Dylan Wu. I guess that's five below him. So my bad on the math error there. All five. Great approach players. Terrible putters. Great birdie makers, terrible putters. One of those five could very well show up this week and be carried by their ball striking and run a hot putter to victory. And so I think all five of those guys, Chan Kim, Joseph Bramlett, Adam Svensson, Grayson Sigg, and Dylan Wu, all five of those guys are probably going to make my player pool in DraftKings here this week. All right, now let's talk about a few more guys. So sorting by salary now, Jackson Koivlin, we got to mention. He's another guy like Thor Bjornsson that look, I'm a believer in the talent. He's coming up from the collegiate ranks. He is very talented. At the John Deere Classic, finished T11. It was largely because of his putter. That part is kind of concerning. But if you're talking about, hey, who's a rising star that could win this event for their first win on tour, Jackson Koivlin is that guy. Bo Hostler is another guy I want to talk about. You talk about a guy that when conditions are easy is at his best. You talk about a guy that can get hot with the putter and usually is. It's Bo Hostler. Everything worked well for him at the John Deere Classic. All four aspects of his game were positive, off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. And if he does that this week, he could find himself in the driver's seat to win because he can absolutely win this golf tournament on the back of his putter. After that, that's really the only guys at the top that I want to talk about. S.H. Kim is kind of here in the mid-range. He's been playing on the Korn Ferry Tour, has a really good history on Zoysia grass fairways for what it's worth, has really good history in like alternate weak field events for what it's worth. So S.H. Kim, absolutely worth a look in my book. After that, like I said earlier, you're getting these DP World Tour players coming over. The best of them are Angel Ayora and Jeremy Paul. These are guys who have actually shown winning upside on the DP World Tour. And I think that if you were to kind of like look at data golf rankings or look at like, I don't want to say the OWGR because it's kind of outdated because of Liv. Like Liv broke the OWGR. If you look at data golf rankings, these two guys are probably underpriced in DraftKings. Like these two guys are probably actually better golfers than they're being given credit for. And that makes them worth a look in DraftKings. Let's take a quick look at Chad Ramey because I've liked playing myself some Chad Ramey in some alternate events and some weak field events. Is that warranted? Well, let's lengthen the window here with the data. He's a positive putter on bent. He's at his best when courses are average or easy difficulty. He's at his best in weak fields. He's also at his best at long golf courses, though, not like this one. That's interesting. Miscut at the John Deere Classic. T26 at the Rocket Classic. So what you're seeing with Chad Ramey is this guy has upside that when he does make the cut, he can give you a pretty good finish, but he's also got a lot of missed cut equity as well. He might make the player pool in DFS. He might. A guy that certainly will, though, Jackson Suber. If you're looking for a long shot to win this event, to bet to win, I already mentioned Justin Lauer. Jackson Suber's my other guy. This guy can just go absolutely scorched earth with his irons. And it really hasn't been like scorched earth recently, but he's at a point where his irons and his putter are all cooperating in his last three starts. Missed the cut on the number at the John Deere Classic, so I'm not really going to hold that against him. And if he got to play the weekend, he probably could have had a pretty good finish. I really like what I'm seeing out of Jackson Suber. He's a guy that is definitely going to make my DFS player pool this week. However, if you listen to any other content about the ISCO, he's pretty popular. So I kind of got to think that he's going to be a guy that other people are going to play. A few other names I'm going to mention. Adam Hadwin. Is the lone guy in this field that has like played a regular schedule of like signature events and like quality PGA Tour events all season long. He's been bad, like just straight up been bad, But if there's a time to find it, why not now in an event where you're objectively coming in as one of the most talented players? Mac Meisner, really good approach player. I have no problem for anybody who'd be playing him at 7,400. Taylor Montgomery, one of the best putters in the field, would have no problem for anybody playing him at 7,400 in DFS. Other than that, David Lipsky coming in off of the very disappointing loss at John Deere Classic might be worth a look at 7,100, but I don't know. It was pretty ugly for him before that event. There's a few more feisty Euro guys as we go down. Andrea Pavon at 7,100 might be worth a look. Max Kiefer, we mentioned for one of the stats, I like at 6,900. That's pretty much it, though. Let's talk about a few value plays, and then we're going to be done. Patton Kizzire is a guy that pops up randomly and wins an event like once every 3 years. It could be now. Like he's a guy that wins. A lot of these other guys down here don't win. I think he might be worth a look in DFS or as an outright bet. 6,900. Two guys I want to talk about. Zach Blair, John Pock. Zach Blair is one of the shortest hitters on the PGA Tour. But this is a course where short hitting is not going to cost him. That alone has me interested in him because he has the rest of the game to be good enough to win. He's just not a long hitter of the ball, right? And he's gained strokes on approach in 3 straight starts. If he just brings his full game, which it would require his full game, he could play well here. And then John Pock is another guy that I'm going to put in the Suber, Koiven, Thorbjornsen category, where this guy was really talented in college. I think he's got the goods, especially with his irons. And it's been 2 straight miscuts in a row, but you see the iron play has consistently been there. It wouldn't shock me if he comes out and plays really well here this week. After that, there's not a whole lot to be interested down here. Matthew Neesmith played well at the ISCO last year at Keen Trace. Generally a pretty good iron player, generally a pretty good short course player. You could do worse than him. Josh Teeter is from Kentucky. He gets invited to this event and generally plays well here. Troy Merritt's a guy that, like, for the last 5 years, whenever you have a bent grass birdie fest, you just play him and you end up with a T24. Last guy I'm going to talk about is Cristobal Del Solar. This is a guy who was almost first-round leader at the RBC Canadian Open. He can just get scorching hot, and if he does that like 2 rounds out of 4, I don't know, might be enough to give you a good finish, might be enough to win a golf tournament. But anyway, that's going to do it here for the breakdown. In addition to this episode, I am going to have my full DFS core for DraftKings posted in an article to the Patreon, as well as a write-up as to why they're my core plays, and I'm going to have my model top 10 in there as well. So if you're interested in that, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. And then if you want more from me, make sure you follow me on Twitter at MikesMoneyPicks and join the Fantasy Corner Discord. It's a community of a bunch of people who play DFS for a lot of different sports. If you're looking for more people to talk DFS with for not just golf, but everything under the sun, we've got you covered in the Fantasy Corner Discord. But that's going to do it here for this episode, y'all. Hopefully we gave you guys all the information you need to know to pick some winners here at this alternate event. And like I said, if you like this content, make sure you hit the like button on YouTube. Make sure you rate and review if you're listening on audio. I cannot stress enough how much those help me out and how much I appreciate it when you guys do that. And then if you have not already, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. That helps me out a ton. We'll be back next week for the Open Championship. Hopefully have an episode for the Barracuda Championship. I might run into some issues there because I am actually traveling for vacation early next week. And if DraftKings doesn't have the pricing or the betting odds out, then that would make doing a breakdown quite difficult. So we'll see how that goes. But if not, we'll definitely have the core plays posted to the Patreon later on next week. But yeah, we're definitely going to be covering the Open Championship. And then make sure you're subscribed. That way you can stick around, be with us for all of our NFL and college football best ball content that's going to be coming your way on YouTube. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Best of luck to you guys at the ISCO Championship. Best of luck to you guys at the Scottish Open as well. If you haven't checked out my video on that, go ahead and check that one out before they tee off over there as well. But best of luck to you guys at these 2 events this week. Enjoy there being 2 events. I know I love these weeks. But thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.